What's going on, JD? Hero Gamer, a Crossfire. It might get spicy tonight.
Good evening, everyone.
Jim. What's going on, Jay? You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Hot topics. Right, I'm just going to be inviting some more people, just sending out some more DMs. So give me a second, yeah? The doc will be joining us soon, but he's just dealing with some stuff at the moment. So, yeah. Bam. Crossfire, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good, bro. Good. Just liking all of this recent kind of influx into people thinking about Bitcoin and NFTs, man. I think Ordinals has definitely been one good thing for stacks, definitely.
Definitely. People thinking about Bitcoin NFTs, and I think at some point they're going to realize they need a good marketplace for that, and I think Stacks is pretty well positioned for that.
Yeah, bro, 100%. I mean, I've never seen so many maxis talk about NFTs in like one day, bro. Like, it's just crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, hey everybody that's just coming in. Yeah, Hero, let's get you up on here as well. Dash, what's good? Pretty good Purple Pill Fridays as well yesterday with Dan and Brad for putting on Purple Pill Fridays. There was different discussions in there yesterday, including the discussion around Ordinals as well. So definitely good space. This one here is being recorded, so we'll be able to listen to it back maybe in the next coming weeks and kind of see where everybody's attitudes and minds were at the time. So yeah, man, like we'll give it a couple of more minutes. I'm just gonna, as I said, throw out some more tweets. I'm tagging some tweets at the top. Also, Hero, Crossfire, John, if you guys have got anything that you found across Twitterverse that is interesting in regard to the conversation, then feel free to pin it to the top. I was hoping we get some definite full-time maxis in here tonight as well to speak about how they feel about the Ordinals, man. Some really good descriptions here, though. I'm looking through also. Jim, let's get you up. Maybe we can actually boost the space enough to get a Rodamore in. That would actually be a really good thing to hear from the actual creator themselves. And I haven't got around to listening to the interview. There was an interview that was posted yesterday in one of the chats. I'm just going to try and find it now. But he appeared on a podcast, I believe. I haven't got around to listening to it yet, but everybody seems to say that it's a pretty good podcast so far. Here we go. I have to tweet the link out. Yeah, there we go. How's everybody's weekend been going in the meantime?
Pretty good on my end. Pretty chill. Just been messing around a lot with stable diffusion and stuff, doing a lot of playing with all this stuff that AI can do, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sick, man. It's pretty sick. I mean, I started messing with disco diffusion a little while back, but I haven't had a chance to really just sit down into it in, let's say, the past couple of weeks. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with GPT since I realised that it could code and it could also code clarity. It's pretty stunning.
Oh, really? No clarity?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it's the references can be out because as far as I know, it stopped learning 2 years ago. But it also seems to be after mainnet launch, so it's like 90% there. It just doesn't know where certain addresses have changed. But it was pretty amazing when I mentioned stacks. It came back with some clarity.
Man, just imagine what it's going to be like in like 2-3 years. It's going to be
Well, I was
gonna be
playing
insane.
with what's his name, Midjourney and DALL-E. A few months ago, I applied ages ago. For early entry, and I got sort of early access to Midjourney, and I racked up something like 15,000 AI hours in the first sort of month or two. I was just smashing it, and it was incredible because I was playing at the same time with DALL-E Mini and DALL-E at the same time. And DALL-E Mini is the open source version, and it was very cartoon-like. It looked like sort of pen drawings, and it was absolutely stunning how quickly it kind of caught up. Like you say, 2 to 3 years, but it was, I think, weeks between me first playing with DALL-E Mini and it looking like pen drawings to it getting towards photographic quality that was coming out of DALL-E. It's like the learning that these systems can do while they're working as well is just insane. And so I think, it felt like me when I first saw all of that come together, it felt like this is the beginning of the singularity or something. It just felt like a really big moment that suddenly these things can just in every way outmaneuver us in terms of fooling us visually. And the chat GPT thing is insane. It's kind of like whatever you do in life, there's probably something that chat GPT could sort of help. It's a bit like having the cleverest phone a friend ever who just knows everything about everything. It's insane.
Yeah, they're really like accelerators. I kind of think about it as like almost being the invention of the graphing calculator or something like that, but for art and for language and everything else. It's really nuts.
Yeah, really. I love it. I mean, I can see how people are a bit scared of it. I did see something the other day which was a little bit worrying, which was a guy who said he knew no code and he built kind of a brute force machine, and he set up like a 16 character, a very good 16 character password on his laptop, and then he'd managed to generate from chat GPT, he managed to break into his computer in a matter of hours.
Geez, that's I mean, that stuff is a little bit terrifying sometimes, but it's going to be more good than bad, I think.
It is. I think that is ultimately usually the answer with these technologies, is that more good that can be achieved, but all the bad stuff kind of happens in the beginning when all the people who aren't worried about regulation just dive in and start doing stuff. But that was what our job was in the early crypto days. So,
Yep.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. Like, I've seen a lot of people speaking about the clarity, how good the clarity and how accurately it writes clarity scripts.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first started using it a few months ago, it was like, people were telling me, okay, well, people can write. I think the first video I watched on a scripting video was somebody doing like a trading view script, and I was like, okay, cool. Like this looks pretty cool. So I went in, and the first question I asked it was about Bitcoin. And the next question I asked it was, can be a simple smart contract for NFT deployment on Stacks using Clarity, and it did it straight away. I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. So like, I'm starting to see so many people like discovering that it can actually do it that accurately, and it is mad, but it is a little bit behind, as you said, Jim, because there are some things like principles and stuff like that it doesn't really understand.
And it often has problems if you're using like the latest version of something. It is providing you with the information for several versions back and things like that. But once you're onto that, I have noticed that I'm guessing it learns from other people that are inputting stuff, because while it sort of coughs up old information, when you say I'm using this newer one, it then starts trying to help you with the newer one, but it does get less accurate once it starts doing that. But yeah, I'm intrigued as to how quick it will learn all this stuff. I've
Yeah,
done
I mean,
scripts for like After Effects, Photoshop, some other animate. Like you just ask it and it just writes, because a lot of those are in a Python script anyway, so that doesn't really
yeah,
matter about
exactly.
the version. So you just get a Python script, whack it in there. It's insane. And also Google Sheets, I've been doing some amazing things in Google Sheets. Just saying, I just need you to write me a script for Google Sheets that will sort through all of this stuff, stuff that we've been doing for this project that we're putting out. It's really incredible, the tooling that is kind of available to us with that stuff.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing. I was gonna actually ask it about Ordinals, and ask it about doing some crazy stuff with Ordinals to see what you could actually do, see if it would come up with anything. But then I remembered, obviously it's quite old, isn't it? Like in terms
Yeah,
of
it's 2 years. I mean, it'd be interesting to
yeah,
ask it and see whether it is completely oblivious to things that have happened recently, or whether it has asked or been asked other questions. Because I don't know
yeah.
how much training it does, how much listening it's doing to us. I don't know.
I know that it definitely there was a couple of weeks ago when they updated it. It stopped. It gave me a response that was like, "Oh, um, I can't, I can't reference earlier point station." But that seems to have gone now, because when I was first using it, it would reference points in conversation. Like you could say to it, "Oh, give me a response that is based on, let's say, the second response that you gave me," and then it changed the response based on that response.
It's not doing
So
that now?
no, it does do it now. Like when they first updated it a couple of weeks ago, and it came
Okay.
back online, it wasn't working. It was giving me a response to saying it's not listening to like chats from before, and it can't search the internet either. But
Yes.
obviously everybody's going crazy about GPT-4, because GPT-4 apparently is now going to be like the most up to date. Like,
Do you see how fast this is? We've only just got our heads around GPT-3, and it's already. I mean, GPT-3 does seem to have access. Doesn't have access to the internet, but does have access to. Is it Google Drive? So it's like one of those things. I've uploaded files that were too big to paste, and then it told me to put the file into Google Drive and send it the address, and then it said yes, I've read through it, and then it gave me some information when it was
that's crazy.
thousands of lines of code. It's mad. It's mad. All we can do is run with it.
It is bad. Maybe if somebody's in front of it now, maybe you should ask it. What kind of what the differences are, like, what the impacts are between, let's say, something like stacks or RSK and ordinals and NFTs. That would be
Have
a
you done
good
much
answer
looking
to hear
into
from
that?
ChatGPT.
Have you done much
You
looking
know
into
what?
that yourself?
What I've been doing, like with ordinals, I've checked out the site, I've gone through all of the stuff, so that kind of brings us around to the topic, right? I've checked out the site, I've looked through all of the stuff, I've seen a couple of the guys in the Stacks ecosystem doing inscriptions. Like I know Brush did an inscription for Satoshables. So yeah, I've been seeing what people are doing, I've been reading up on it, and I'm gonna restart an old node to mess around with it. I don't know how long that node's gonna take to sync up though, because it's on a pretty old iMac. So yeah, like I'm gonna mess around with it on that node before I do it on my other one. So yeah, it does look very interesting though, and it would be great if anybody in here, I don't know if you've messed with it, Jim, yourself, or if anybody in here has messed with it, jump up and let us know, like, like what is your insight to Ordinal so far, and how has it been for you?
I only actually have to admit, because my head has been so deep in things that we've had going on with This Is Number One, that it was just in a chat last night that I was made aware of it, and I looked into it last night and this morning, and it's just sort of struck me that it's quite an interesting turnout after what sort of it felt like happened with Stacks last year, which was a bit of a shunning from the Maxi kind of community. And now it's a little bit like the realization that you can't have your Kadit. Now they're going on. Now we've got to fight bloat. Now it's all about now you're going to use the precious blockchain for storing JPEGs and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, look, we've made the solution that is the right solution ultimately. But for whatever reason, you guys really fought us. And so, of course, people went and found the solution that would work, that was like within your rules. I mean, I seem to remember at some point Adam Back even,
the parameters, yeah.
Yeah, I seem to remember Adam Back even saying at some point last year, maybe during an argument with Manib on Twitter, saying, if this is what it takes, having a second chain with its own currency doing NFTs, then Bitcoin doesn't need NFTs. Just leave them on Ethereum. And it's like, I mean, I just don't understand how that's productive. It just seemed to me just defensive.
I'm actually looking for a tweet right now, so give me a second. I'm going to look for this tweet. But Adam Back actually literally put out a tweet last week, in which he almost basically described stacks for something should be worked around for a solution. So it was quite funny to see that, actually.
Yeah, so it feels interesting that it's like it's now it's kind of coming back to bite them in a way that, because Stacks wasn't really given the platform that it should have had, certainly at like the Bitcoin conference, we didn't get the exposure. The exposure that we get seems to still come in short bursts, like the exposure we got from the Sappy Seals incident with the network farming or whatever it was. That that kind of thing really showed me how well we've been silenced, because it's just such an amazing answer that has actually been being worked on, obviously, for years, because of the way Manib did it. He did it that way, and did it so that it wouldn't have that SEC black cloud hanging over it. So it took time, and it's the right solution, in my opinion. I knew about it a long time ago. It was totally happening when Vitalik was already working on Ethereum. They were Vitalik just went, let's just do this straight away, open source, the whole decentralized vibe. But if only Vitalik had that little moment of clarity and gone, is there another option to burning Bitcoin to get value into this new network so people will mine it? And if only he'd had the proof of transfer kind of light bulb moment, we wouldn't be here. We probably wouldn't even know the term shitcoin. I don't know. Probably we would, but it would be very much harder to define than it is now with Stacks. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things kind of pan out now that they seem to be fighting fires on every side. The maxis.
Yeah, and that's something that I've mentioned in the space also, like a few times. Is that with Vitalik, it's almost like all Vitalik needed to do was just hang in there a little longer and work out a way. I say to people all the time, Vitalik's like one of the biggest maxis, but people don't really understand that, because obviously he started Ethereum, so but he is one of the biggest maxis out here, and I'm sure if he could turn back time, he would keep Ethereum closer to Bitcoin. So Prism, you got your hand up,
guys. What's up? Yeah, I appreciate you bringing me up. I just joined the space and I was on stage, so I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm glad to be here. I just wanted to add to what Jim was saying about Ordinals. We're obviously very early in the development of this, and so you think about some of the you think about music. We can focus on music. You go back to when we were playing 8-bit games and the music that came with that versus where we're at now. There will be folks that work on compression for this, and you'll be able to fit more and more into these inscriptions. And so I'm interested in what Jim had to say as far as how this sort of shifts where maxis want these things to take place. But then I'm also interested in how these things develop. Are we going to have wallets that can single out sats? Is this data going to be able to be compressed where you can fit more into a single sat? And then what does that mean? So those are the things that I think are things to watch moving forward. Also interested to hear what Trevor has to say.
Yeah, one thing I was wondering about on that note is whether or not we'd be able to use DLCs to be kind of like an escrow for trading these things. It seems like that would be a really kind of sweet use case as DLC Link and others kind of get up to speed, being able to kind of use that as a way to kind of front end transactions of these things.
Yeah, I can answer that. So the way to transfer these is basically just through an atomic swap. So the limitations of that I'm still like working through, but essentially you can use an unsigned transaction, and you can like atomic swap the ordinal for any amount of BTC that you agree to, or you could swap one ordinal for another, for example, through atomic swap.
That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And have you tried using it yourself, Trevor? Have you tried inscribing anything?
Yeah, I've inscribed 3 so far. One of those we're gonna give away to like the Crash Punks community. It's a dope drawing of Manib's Crash Punk in his by Das, who's like a dope anime artist in the Stacks community. So we're gonna give that away as like a giveaway. It's ordinal number 2191. I have two others in there. I'm not gonna share what those ones are. You guys can maybe guess and find them. Yeah, it's pretty easy to do, and it's like relatively inexpensive as well. Surprisingly, I mean, I think for a like 350 kilobyte graphic, it was like $50 or $40. It depends, of course, on the time of the day. Like probably right now it's lower, but yeah, it's like I see ordinals as like a replacement for IPFS, not really like a replacement for smart contracts. There's so many limitations. So you can't have a collection. You can't have any type of programmability to them. You can't like have the NFT do anything or change or be based on the block height or different variables. You couldn't create games on them, but you can mint artwork to Bitcoin directly, and you can trade it through tracking the Satoshi. If I send you the UTXO of that Satoshi, I send that to you, then we can verify that you are the holder of that file. So I think it's super exciting, and I think it's from a argument perspective, and it's created a very valuable discussion in the Bitcoin community, and I think it's opening a lot of minds and kind of there was the guy who does Song a Day. He made a really great song about ordinals, and it was like just kind of all about the Bitcoin culture. And he said like, no, you can't do this. You can't use Bitcoin this way. Bitcoin's going to be like Ethereum. And so just really funny. And then I think it's definitely causing cultural change in a positive way.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm just trying to find that tweet from Adam if he hasn't deleted it already. But yeah, it does seem like a lot of the time, whatever the arguments that everybody seems to make, apart from the censorship argument, because a lot of people, I noticed a lot of maxis were making like censorship arguments at the beginning, and other maxis were pulling them up and saying like, you crazy, you can't be like just censoring transactions out here and encouraging everybody to just censor transactions, because then that makes us look exactly how everybody else looks at us, So yeah, and then Adam replied, I think with a reply, I'm still trying to find it, but there was a reply that he said, which basically described, okay, well, stacks in kind of other wording, isn't it, really and truthfully. So it is definitely, for me, I can see that it's a good shift in conversation, because now this is something that we have to be talking about, and we should have been talking about ages ago. And then on top of that, as you said as well, kind of the IPFS storage and looking at it like an alternative to IPFS, I think that's how I kind of thought it came across to me at the beginning. And then I've seen other people and yourself also tweeting about it. So it's like, yeah, that seems like the better route to go. But yeah, censoring transactions is like, yeah, that is just some crazy shit to hear Bitcoiners talking about censoring transactions on miners. That's crazy, man.
It's mad, isn't it? Because it's like that's where this whole argument for stacks really came from. Where it's like, let's not get into any arguments about how precious just the ability to settle is. Just by allowing everyone to just settle, just their Bitcoin transactions, or what Stacks is doing by settling a bunch of transactions. And so Trevor, when you're saying like $50, is it that you're basically paying to try and take all of the transactions in a block by sort of paying the miner, or like trying to take more space within the transaction in order to save information? Is that how it works?
Well, basically the block limit is 4 megabytes, right? So you can't store an image greater than 4 megabytes, and the amount of space you take will just be based on how big your file size is. So like I wouldn't recommend having a file that's like 3.5 megabytes. It may never get included in a block. I think in order for them to get the 3.9, and I'm really not sure, I haven't tested it, but in order for them to get the 3.9 one included in the block, it was a partnership with the Luxor Mining. And so Luxor Mining, the CEO of that company, he's like super into ordinals. He's out there tweeting about it. And he's he worked with Yudi and Eric Wall, and they have a Discord group called Taproot Wizards. I highly recommend people checking out. If you want to learn more, you got to join the Ordinals Discord and join the Taproot Wizards Discords. Those are like where all the stuff is happening. But essentially it'll just fit in the block. I think the average block size is like 1.5 megabytes. That's what I found over time. So these blocks are far from full, and then it's just a fee market like Ethereum or Stacks. So it's a cost per byte. You have to pay more per byte to be included. I think if there's some other algorithms that weigh into the prioritization of different things. Like for example, on Stacks, normal Stacks transfers get higher priority than other operations, just like independent of the gas. So there might be some things like that. I don't know enough about like the mining software. There's different mining software. There's like Stratum, V1, V2, I think. And so you wouldn't really like necessarily be able to crowd out other transactions. There is supposedly a small discount, but it eventually it's going to be very expensive to record these things onto Bitcoin, and it may eventually price itself out, or it's just going to be limited to really valuable artwork where it's like, if you want to have something or even a memory, so it's like whatever you're willing to pay, to have
whatever you have to have like saved instantly. Like that's I guess the payoff with going into Stacks is that you just have to settle for like you're not actually confirmed for up to half an hour or whatever. Whereas once you're actually, if you're doing Bitcoin, the second that is in that first block, that's the confirmation that you would have been waiting for on Stacks while you've actually you've already sent the transaction. So it does seem counterintuitive to me. I mean, this whole block size argument's been rumbling in Bitcoin for years. It's already been an internal kind of civil war over block size, and so it definitely seems to me to be something that they don't really want, because it is the extension that we see Stacks as being at like if you think of Bitcoin as a circle and then Stacks being a much bigger circle outside that allows this all to go on. If you pump that all into that central circle, especially as you're trying to go this into like so many transactions, it just seems like even now, if there's people trying to get in on the odd transaction, once you've got people like megabytes and megabytes of people queuing up every 10 minutes to dump into Bitcoin transactions, doesn't seem like it scale. But I guess we'll see how that turns out.
I just keep coming back to, like, I just don't see how it is useful for, I mean, exactly what Trevor said. I just don't see how it's useful for NFTs over another layer. I think we'll see people try to fit this into this, try to fit this in here, but and work on things to make them more functional. And like I said, I think compression will be a big thing. The ability to very easily access a UI where you can see what you're holding and single out those things, that'll be very helpful. But I think the conclusion that we'll get to is that there's got to be another layer.
There has at the moment. I mean, I never say never. It's like at some point this technology, we don't know where the code will go or what it'll be capable of. But the idea of eventually Bitcoin, could become proof of stake and the whole EVM type thing. It's like, who knows what could be achieved in the future. But certainly right now, we're still the best solution as far as I can see.
That's another point. We'll see where this conversation goes with Bitcoin maxis and where they feel these things should end up. Whether they just fight this and it just keeps going and it's just something they don't like, or it gets pushed to another layer like Stacks. So we'll see how that conversation plays out, and then how the result of that conversation impacts different things on Bitcoin moving forward.
I mean, it's still early, but I don't think that there's enough people that are actually, against ordinals to the extent where they'd be able to do anything to actually stop it. Because I mean, it is following protocol rules, and they can't really do anything except break Bitcoin in order to stop them. So like, they're going to have to accept it, and I feel like it's just going to kind of evolve into its own kind of specialty NFT kind of space. Like, nobody's going to mint 10,000 profile pic NFTs on Bitcoin. It's going to be just way too expensive to do something like that. But they may do kind of like one-off NFTs kind of in a way that's like alternative to IPFS storage, right? And they'll have that on Bitcoin, and then maybe that'll be, even tracked on something like Stacks for trading and other things like that. But, I think there's going to be a lot of evolution that's going to happen with this, but it's not going to be it's not going to be like the ETH style, stack style NFT space that we've been accustomed to.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the hard maxis have already like lost this debate like pretty solidly. I mean, a lot of the toxic maxis are just in favor of this, period. So, it's exciting to see. And I think that when it comes to ordinals, like there's a lot of, it'll have its place as sort of like a very high value record keeper for, media and files. But the functionality is not nearly as versatile as smart contracts. So even if you're just talking about like minting out a collection, like typically with an NFT project, you will like create 10,000 works of art. You'll upload to IPFS, which is much cheaper than Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is still within reach for like if you're doing like one or two things. But then you will have a people mint the token and pay their own gas for it. In this situation, the only way you can do it is you have to pay the gas yourself, and then maybe you can trade it later. And there's no infrastructure for that yet. And even setting up like a Discord bot to like verify people for having a certain set of tokens, that's going to be, I think, possible. Like if you could check the ordinal number and you can use it as a membership pass, but it would be fairly manual. The main sort of like, if you think about releasing a collection that is a set of a certain number of items, like 10 items, you want to have like it's a bit hacked together, right? Because you'd want to try and send all 10 of them into the mempool at the same time, have them be minted, and then maybe have like an 11th one to like summarize it, because it's really hard to prevent somebody from like just copying your picture and putting it on there. There's no sort of like central source of truth or contract overlay on top of it to connect all of them together. That being said, like that could be maybe something done on other layers. I would like to see an app that could allow any Stacks NFT to switch from IPFS to Bitcoin through the ordinal. And that would be cool. That would just be cool. It's a cool gimmick. I think as a gimmick and as a like, writing on IPFS is like, maybe inscribing your message or your data into concrete. But with Bitcoin, it's like inscribing into stainless steel. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's just has a much higher likelihood of being here 100 years now, or alien civilizations when they discover us, like at it, right? And so I think it's a fantastic thing. I think that there's a lot of ways that apps on Stacks can integrate with it. One of the challenges, if you're doing this, make sure you use a wallet with coin control, because most Bitcoin wallets don't have coin control, like Ledger and others. So if you send one of these ordinals to like a normal Bitcoin wallet, like you can kiss it goodbye. Like it will probably be coin joined, and there's maybe like no way you can kind of get it out of there without like putting your same seed phrase into another coin control wallet. I would recommend Sparrow. I think that's a good one. There's also I think the Ordinal website is building its own wallet, but it's like very experimental. But something like a Sparrow wallet with coin control should be sufficient. These are all the issues that like could be solved by the Stacks community, and could really build the case that Stacks is building on Bitcoin. So that's what I think the biggest opportunity is.
Yeah, that was my first thought last night when I heard about it. Was what can we do with it? Because I think that's often the first thought is it's competition, but actually whatever they're doing, if it is whatever its advantages are, like exactly what Trevor just said in terms of recording straight to Bitcoin, then we can take advantage of that as well with some apps we're doing, and also things like ledgers. Because I'm guessing that's what you meant, Trevor, before when you're saying it's hard to stitch them together because there's no single point of distribution or whatever, to sort of link them all together. I was also wondering though, so is when you save something in a transaction, is it that transaction that it stays in forever because it's just in the blockchain, or is that you saying 100 Trevors in? Yes, that is. It stays in the same place.
Yeah, unless you. I mean, I don't know all the details on this, but I'll give you like my high level understanding, which is that Ethereum and Stacks are both account based blockchains, where Bitcoin is UTXO based, which means that every single Bitcoin is actually non-fungible. I mean, they can be combined, but you can like trace the history back of like one Satoshi or one UTXO from like being in your wallet to when it was mined, versus in an account-based system that doesn't have UTXOs. That's not the case. So it's really a unique feature of a Bitcoin that like UTXO stands for unspent transaction output. So basically, when I send you a certain amount of Bitcoin, let's say I have 1 Bitcoin, I want to send you 0.1 Bitcoin, it's going to create that into a UTXO, and that's sending that into your wallet. And then once you have that, it will be able to, like, let's say then someone else sends you 0.1 Bitcoin. The blockchain can recognize the difference between those two different UTXOs. So it's like the UTXO that's sitting in your wallet that they add up to, versus in an account-based system, it's like you can't really differentiate between the 0.1 and the 0.1 Bitcoin. We can see that somebody sent you that amount, but it's like not like having like a dollar bill. It's like if I write the word Trevor on a dollar bill and I give it to you, and somebody else writes their name on a dollar bill and gives it to you, you can figure out which one of the dollars was given to you by who.
Yeah, there's a map of the whole entire blockchain. Every single transaction, you can trace your amount back into the block it came from, and then the amount that came from, all the way back to the beginning. And so when you're saving this data, so the person who purchases the NFT, for example, they are purchasing the key to tell a node to read a historical part of the blockchain. So you're not having to pay yourself to transfer all that information in a new transaction to a new mined transaction. You're just getting the key to that originally mined transaction.
Correct.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see what we can do with it and what we can do for people who want to use it.
Hello guys. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, so on that thought, I just wanted to throw more light on that. If they're planning or something, some organization is going down now concerning what stacks can do for ordinals. Maybe like I don't know. People could come up with marketing campaigns or some ideas. I think I'm volunteering to sort of work on that. And it shouldn't be seen as competition, because building on Bitcoin is it's inevitable. It's going to happen. So I think stacks should be extending even more to this kind of builds. I mean, if I could, recently I started working on. I'm contributing to the Bitcoin library with Clarity, and then it's interesting if stacks can get transactions triggered from Bitcoin. And if I could make some NFTs or build an application through that proof of transfer, um, I think everyone on Stacks should be happy and lovely to support it. You understand? Because it's all about bringing more utility to Bitcoin. So I'm just talking because I saw some tweets, and people should not be thinking it's competition. It's healthy competition actually. And okay, back to what I started with. If I just saw a retweet Bitcoin Ordinals, and I commented. I don't know who has the account, but if there's a build going on, some sort of marketing campaign about this or some work documentation, our team is willing to work on that.
Yeah, so definitely, I don't see it as I see it more as like a healthy competition and a utility as well. There, Teke. I definitely agree with that 100%. So let's reset the room a little bit. If you're in here, make sure you're tweeting out the room. Thanks to everybody for joining as well this week to talk about this, because it has been kind of like a quick set of developments over the last like week or so with this. A lot of new news coming out and a lot to discover. So what I'd say next is with in terms of your own kind of like personal journeys with NFTs on stacks. How would you compare it? I know, Trevor, you did a bit of comparison just now, but how would people compare it into when they're first finding out about Ordinals? Because I know when I first found out about stacks, it wasn't just NFTs. As Trevor highlighted, some of the other features of Stacks is what made Stacks very unique in its case for building upon the base of Bitcoin. So yeah, in terms of that, as Trevor said, Ordinals is like one thing, isn't it? So and Stacks encompasses multiple things. So how does everybody kind of like feel now that there's like kind of something else there?
I mean, I've been really happy about the conversation that it's brought on. You know, it's felt like an uphill battle for a long time telling people about Bitcoin NFTs, and actually it makes life a lot easier when everyone starts talking about Bitcoin NFTs, less about what they are and more about where they're coming from. I think it's quite cool that this conversation has suddenly exploded into life. It's awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's one of those things that's kind of funny because a lot of Bitcoiners just kind of avoid talking about stacks very much. But with ordinals, like they literally don't have the possibility of ignoring the conversation anymore. So now they have to kind of engage with NFTs and these ideas. And okay, now that we have them, then the next question is going to be how do we kind of manage them, and how are we going to scale this? How can we do what other NFT platforms have done? And inevitably that road leads to really taking a strong look at stacks and what's already been built. And I think for a lot of people, it's going to be kind of a blessing in disguise that they don't realize is already there.
I 100% agree. I think it's just going to bring people in, and then they're going to look at what's possible, and then they're going to find that the most potential is residing here currently.
Okay, right. So we've got some other speakers on the stage. I mean, anybody that wants to speak, just chime in whenever you want. You don't throw up your hands or anything like that. Everything's pretty relaxed in our spaces. We run spaces every 2 weeks, and it will always be on something Bitcoin and stacks related. So we tend to like mix up the conversation. But we have had a few maxis jump in before as well and give their opinions. So we like to hear opinions from all sides. We're not going to shoot anyone down.
I'd be curious if anyone who is really who watches or is involved in the Bitcoin community or the Maxi community, if they've seen anyone come around to the idea since a week ago or 2 weeks ago, whenever this started.
Yeah, I haven't seen many people like suddenly changing their perspective on NFTs, but I have seen a lot of people coming to the defense of ordinals and what they are, and kind of having to take that position because they don't want to take the censorship side of the debate that some maxis have gone down. And so while I don't necessarily think they're all of a sudden ready to jump headfirst into NFTs, they're kind of aligned from a values perspective. And as this thing starts to become a thing, they're going to kind of be forced to be on the side of rooting for its success, at least in a healthy way, versus it kind of devolving into something that's actually not productive for Bitcoin. And as long as that's the case, I mean, they'll be allies. I know I've seen like, Shinobi being pretty good at kind of arguing for the positives of, what it is, and at least like arguing against it being something people need to freak out about. I think that's kind of a healthy discussion for, some of the maxis to be having.
Yeah, I think it's going to definitely be. There's a few Bitcoin conferences coming up really soon, especially obviously even the big Bitcoin conference happening over in Miami. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see this come up in conversations, debates, roundtables, fireside chats, and I think that it will kind of think some people are going to want to keep it on the low, but I think it's kind of like going to just continue to go uphill from now, especially as the chart is starting to look like we're heading back into a bull run a little bit early. It'll be interesting to see.
Hey guys, I I'm curious about the stacks NFT community and with marketing and is there a place where someone can get let's say the data of how many NFTs get minted possibly uh, every day, and so we could possibly work on stuff because like with the right marketing, because the use case of stacks NFTs and the stacks blockchain itself, it's wider than most of the competition. I think all of them even. I think Stacks has what it takes, especially now with SBTC and Hyperchains coming. So I think I'm just saying with that kind of data and some marketing structure, the Stacks NFT community should make a lot of noise within this new year. I mean, we're all expecting Stacks uh, to do a lot because we're building a lot. I know that the core devs have increased a lot, and within our community also we try to learn and follow up. So um, I want to know, like, are there plans for huge marketing concerning mostly key things we're building, like Bitcoin NFTs and SBTC and Hyperchains?
I mean, this time last year was a completely different community. So when the market's hot, Stacks is, I mean, pretty busy. Um, it's been a little bit harder as a smaller chain to get folks jumping in. In my personal opinion, this is just my opinion. We've Stacks has always done a lot of things towards Bitcoiners, but not necessarily enough towards those who are active on chain, on other chains. And so I think the unlocks come with a few things. Hyperchains, which haven't necessarily talked about or heard about anytime recently, but then SBTC, the USDC bridge could bring a lot of liquidity over. I don't think people realize how much money is in stablecoins and how important it is to be able to access stablecoins, especially if it's tied to Bitcoin. So I think all of these things together could potentially bring in those who are active on chain and are familiar with doing things on chain. And I think that's kind of the route. Now, like I said, last year this time it was very busy. Really got to get creative now, and getting marketing out there and stuff. And just as a project ourselves, we're trying to partner with like-minded projects in other ecosystems. We're looking at what's working right now across NFTs in general, and how can we bring that into a essentially a PFP art project. So we're trying to get creative, and I think that's just kind of what you got to do right now, because marketing specifically to the Stacks community. I mean, we're all here, and marketing to the Bitcoin community, just not as I would say more on the maxi end, more on the definitely more on the maxi end, just not as familiar with everything that's actually going on chain. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Maybe Trevor or Hero, you want to chime in there? Because I know we were in Hero last night together in Purple Pill Fridays. Well, I didn't talk. I was listening, and there was a lot of talk about this same kind of marketing efforts. I can see Dan down there as well. So if you want to jump up, Dan, and speak about that, because this is something that I know gets spoken about in Purple Pill Fridays. And by the way, if you haven't gone into Purple Pill Fridays before, Dan Trevino down there, Dan T.BTC, runs a space every Friday, very chilled space just for stackers to hang out and talk about what's going on in Stacks. So yeah, definitely join that space as well, because we talk about all of these issues like in there every week.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. I think ultimately, like, the most important thing for Stacks is to have, obviously you're gonna see this as my opinion, but to have successful startups built on it, because marketing a coin does nothing. Like, just saying like, oh, like, come check out our coin, like, those are usually like the kind of scammier shitcoin projects. Hex, no offense to anybody in here who has Hex, but these are the type of projects that spend all their money on marketing rather on building like R&D and tech. And I think with Stacks, like, there's going to be a lot of stuff we're working on right now with marketing towards startups, specifically around SBTC. And what generally happens is, you know, ourselves, like Stacks Ventures, other entities, we invest into founders and builders who, to get them going and to get them to a point where they've can launch their product, and then they go out to other investors and they raise like 10 times more money, and then they build valuable technology and they market their technology and their use case. And by marketing their apps, how we're going to get users. We're not going to get users by like marketing Stacks and being like, hey, come check out this coin. It's going to be like, you have a problem, you have a lot of Bitcoin and you want to get a yield on it, right? Come to this app, and that's really going to be on the startups and the founders and the builders who can use this technology to create a differentiated product in the market. And then for them, there's going to be plenty of money everywhere. Like if you build a good business, you'll have plenty of money to advertise it and get users. And so it's about creating that network effect of like, we have tons of startups building here, and then getting them capitalized, and then them finding their users, because you can't like just advertise a technology platform to a user to say like, hey, we have everything you need, like come here. It has to be like very targeted on a startup by startup basis. This is the problem that you have, here's how we solve it for you, come here, it's on Stacks. So while I think it's like very easy to think like, oh, we need to do like advertising and marketing, there should be like a Super Bowl ad for Stacks. I really don't think that would be the right approach. It's really about building the tool developer tooling and sort of like allowing the new use cases such as SBTC that unlocks the potential for new startups to target a new market, and then helping those startups raise funding so that they can do the marketing to their end users. And then the more, it's like a flywheel. The more startups we get here, the more users, which leads to like more builders and more startups and more investors. And so, from my point of view, the real crux of this is like that flywheel of like, we need to get as many startups building here as possible, and also building for the right reasons. Like if and also the best founders in the world. So you have to work backwards from what would the like what would cause like the best founders in the world to build on Stacks. What are those kind of areas that are unique, and then how do we find those people and support them? And that's like kind of like what I focus on every day. So it's obviously no wonder this is my thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you weren't buying NFTs, there wouldn't be necessarily a reason to jump to Stacks at this point. So when SBTC comes and we have products where you can use that, I think that's a reason. I'm going to use this product and it's on Stacks. I've definitely thought that way. I think that's how I jumped into Solana a long time ago, was just I want to use this protocol. So I think that's 100% right. I think we could do a better job. Well, I guess just community wise, just kind of building the Stacks community in general and connecting those builders with the community. I sense a little bit of a disconnect from those who are building all these things, and it would be great to kind of be engaged with them, give the perspective of all of us active users here in NFTs who are on chain every day and testing wallets and testing the chain, and so I would like to see a little bit of more involvement between these seemingly separate groups at this point. But yeah, I agree with you. I think if we have those products in place, reason for people to come here and actually use their BTC. I don't think if you want to use your Bitcoin productively today, I believe there's only one way to in a non-custodial way. So this will be pretty big.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of to go along with what both of you just said is that when we first started up doing STX LDN, like one thing that I said to the team is, we have to use as many Stacks apps internally, stuff like Block Survey and Owlink and stuff like that. Like use as many of these apps as you can, because one thing that I often find myself saying to people from other communities is that the thing with a lot of the Stacks apps that are coming out, including ones again like Block Survey is a prime example, is they all work. They all work. Like they work really, really well. So and they're very simple to use. So if you've got any kind of exposure to Web3 whatsoever, then you should really be able to fire up any one of the apps and be able to use them. So with that utility of SBTC and having the kind of productivity use case for Bitcoin, and then all of these working applications that have been built over time, like for a very long time, because again, Stacks community does very much, everyone's got their head down when they need to have their head down, and they work and they get stuff done. So I think that, again, I'd agree with what both of you have said, but there are some real prime examples, and I think one of the ways to get that across to other communities is just by us all using these apps as they're coming out, like intensely, and internally in your different projects or businesses. So yeah, sorry, that brings me back round to the point I was making before. I know Hero, I did bring you up on the stage. Did you have anything to chime in? Because I know we were talking about these topics yesterday, as I said in and Dan as well. If you want to jump up as well, if you got time.
Yeah, just a quick one on. Sorry, my voice is a bit gone. On Prison's comments about builders, I think last year it's just my own my own observation. Sort of in the community last year versus this year. Last year, I think there was even more isolation of builders. I don't know why the builders don't tend to uh, interact. Maybe they don't know that it's possible, or maybe they don't use Discord, or what. But yeah, I think they used to be a little more. And what I'm seeing this year, which is kind of positive, is that the startup web startup lab that Albert runs, I think he encourages the builders or the potential future builder projects to go out and speak to the consumers. And I really like that because that's where you're going to get your direct feedback. You're going to get, you're not just building in isolation. And then at the same time, you're connecting with the community. So I think that is very positive to see. And I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah, and I've just posted up on the top there as well that the Web3 Startup Bootcamp is available, or opening back up for applications for the next cohort also. And I know, Trevor, you also run that with Albert, so that might be something to chime in on a little bit. Shameless plug while you're in the space, bro.
No, but it's interesting. Trevor's comment about like not just marketing sake, and thinking about that, it does make sense, which I didn't think about before. That we actually have builders and apps, actual utilities as Stacks ecosystem, rather than just having fewer apps and just trying to market it heavily. Yeah, it's what we're trying to do.
Through that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off here. I think you cut out on my end. Um, over this bear, I've been watching Avalanche specifically, and I think this is where the highest growth of productive, some sort of Bitcoin is taking place. The Avalanche is the chain with the highest growth of wrapped Bitcoin on it. And looking at the community, obviously they were a lot higher than $3 and came down percentage wise, maybe a little bit more than we did. And throughout this whole bear, you see a mean in NFT spaces every week. You see builders and NFT communities talking all the time, and it most of the time it's just NFT projects complaining, and there's not enough users and all this stuff. But I think just that engagement keeps people there and it keeps people involved. And so it's just something I've noticed, something I've noted through the bear here, how involved some of these other chains who they're also trying to really, they caught they caught more of a bid than we did last cycle, but they're in the same position we are. And so I'm just, evaluating how all these other chains are kind of building out. And that's something that I really liked is how involved the leaders of that chain were with, the plebs down here, us.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's one of those things too where, me personally, like, yeah, I think NFTs are cool, but I more focus on like the financial and DeFi side of things more so than the NFTs. And I've also seen just a lot of activity from like some of the other chains on their, Bitcoin solutions, whether for, Avalanche, I've seen like a lot of them hyping their new Bitcoin bridge. And I think that's going to be a huge opportunity for us as SBTC gets closer. And even though we're not there yet, I think, it's really already that time to, kind of rally around, hey, these are the benefits. Let's paint the picture of, what you're going to be able to do with Arcadico and taking out loans there, getting stable coins in a trustless way, and how it's going to be low friction to do so. And then, when you do that, hey, you can also put stacks in those vaults and they can automatically start paying back themselves with the stacking yield. And that's the benefits of stacks. That's something you can't get elsewhere with other decentralized loans. So it's like painting that picture and keeping people engaged with that vision is, I think that's a key thing. And, it would be great if that was coming from, kind of leadership, but it's also good that it just comes from the community naturally too.
I agree 100% that's really important, that people keep an eye, certainly on things that are imminent and inevitable, like SBTC, and look at what can be achieved with it, because you want to start building that stuff now, or building with it in mind, because once it's here, you don't want to be suddenly left behind by everyone who has kind of just thought a little bit ahead and gone, everyone's going to smash this SBTC, they're all going to want to use it. I mean, this is again one of the things that really does put Stacks right back at the top. I still don't know enough about Ordinals to know what can be achieved, but just the fact that we're going to be able to offer direct pegs into a world where you can just earn interest is going to be huge. It's the simplest utilities that are the best ultimately. And so I think, that's once that comes, everyone wants to be on board and be knowing that that's how you're going to be doing a lot of trading with whatever you're doing in SBTC.
A crossfire about your comments about the from the community side, and also President's comment about the sort of the leadership working with or more working closer with the community. On SBTC, there is actually a guy called Andre, who's proposed to do business development partnerships. I don't know if it does marketing too, but anyway, my point is he's almost sort of like the guy who's gonna be like leading um, the business development. I don't want to exclude it to business development because that could be he could be doing some marketing. I wonder whether, like, in general, just the bigger entities should engage with the community so that we can have the messages aligned, or set up a call with the community more regularly so that we are in communication with what we are saying. Or do you think it should just be separate and we just do what we do and the entities say what they say?
Yeah, I think it's good to have just a strong push on both fronts, from the community and leadership. And it doesn't have to be something where it's, kind of formally set up. But what I would love to see is people getting more of the vision of like, hey, these are the DeFi primitives that exist in Stacks, right? Like, let's walk through a hypothetical, right, of like you being able to use Eco to take a loan against your Bitcoin. You get your stable coins. You then go and you start yield farming them over on Bitflow. You earn that yield. You flip that into Alex and use at Alex to gain some kind of yield. Like, I think that's one of those things. That's just some random example, but like, I don't think necessarily people have put together the pieces of how Stacks is building an ecosystem. And we do have some like pretty cool single Lego bricks of technology within Stacks already, but it's not necessarily something that I think people have put together how they can be kind of combined to build an actual solution for like financial problems people have. And I think that's where those combinations are really where you get people engaged, get people trying out new things, mixing and matching. You get more activity in all of those different areas with those different protocols. And then once you have that, you get people thinking of new ideas of things that could be built on Stacks that we haven't really seen yet. I think that's kind of just a way to do it, but it's not necessarily something that I guess I don't really have a good answer for like how we should orient that. But I don't think necessarily, at least from what I've seen, people have that idea of how to connect those bricks together.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely going to take like a lot of. I think I'm on both sides of the argument here as well with what Hero said as well, because this is obviously like doing these things in kind of like a maybe more coordinated way. I want to say, in terms of promoting some stuff in the ecosystem, or focusing on certain things. But I think every project in the ecosystem, and people across different projects in the ecosystem, do that in a very, very good manner across the Stacks
Hello.
ecosystem. But with hold on
So
one sec, Teke.
I
One sec,
wanted
Teke.
to
Yo,
also
Teke.
hear from
Can I land that, Teke?
others. Like
Is he?
I think everybody has
Can you
perspective
hear?
and opinions. And one question that I like to ask mentors and other OGs and people that are superiors, I like to ask them, what is your idea? I mean, your idea of stacks in its full potential. Um, what's it to you? You understand? And people often come up with different um, ideas of stacks in its full potential. Some will say it has to do with a lot of applications, um, with a lot of applications anchored to Bitcoin, and actually unleashing that build side of it, and then others will link it to the market cap, and say things like, um when it grows to some capacity, that's when stacks it's its full potential. So I'm curious to hear from most of y'all, like, what is stacks to you, and then because I feel like it should all be built. If you ask me, my if I were to describe stacks in its full potential, I would say stacks should give almost be like, I would call it a tunnel or a pipe where different transactions should be anchored to coin, and because once most of the chains, because most of them might not be secure enough, Bitcoin has proven its security, and then if we anchor a lot of information data to it, and we stand as that tunnel, we will achieve a lot. To me, like, there are some examples that I want to give out, some applications that I've seen around, like, see what Polkadot is doing. They built substrates. They put a framework, blockchain building framework. I use it myself because I write Rust, and it's used to build blockchains. So that's now okay. I could start building a blockchain. Building blockchains are hard, Then because they've created that tool, um, I'm sort of connected with them. You understand? So it's like it's a tunnel. I feel like stacks should even find other chains, and get some transactions that are worthy to be anchored on Bitcoin, or some information, and then be that bridge to it. That's my full potential. I see Trevor wants to talk about it.
Yeah, I would almost like kind of maybe turn this question around a little bit and reframe it in terms of like, what ideas do you guys have to attract more builders to stacks, in terms of identifying the right builders? Because just like throwing money at something is like something that doesn't really tend to work. That's why we've seen, like, with Solana, like, uh some of the perverse incentives around like FTX, and some of these, like, the pitch for Solana has always been like, come here and make money, and then you attract all the type of people who just want to make money. But it tends to be that you look at like the greatest founders, like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and others. They were really motivated by a purpose for changing the world and what change they wanted to see in the world. And so I think the question I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on is, how do we identify those people who are mission aligned with Saks' mission, which of course we do have this sort of like contradiction with Bitcoin maximalism. I think that we've made a ton of progress over the last year, and I think inevitably the truth always wins in the end, and it just takes a long time. May take longer than we expect, but as we're going into SBTC, I think that there's going to be more of a focus on SBTC itself and applications that can provide useful reasons for people to bring their Bitcoin to do something with it on Stacks. And how we figure out what those use cases are is really about to just finding the builders, right? Like finding the people who want to spend, week after week just thinking about a problem that they have, a problem they want to, the first thing to think about in the shower is like, how do I make this thing become a reality on Stacks, or what is the thing that people need? And so I think it just comes down to, how do we target those builders, let them know about why Stacks is going to be a world-class way for them to solve the problem that they want to solve.
Yeah, I think that's that's kind of the $1 million question. One of the things I think about a lot with with this is like, a lot of the people that we talk to are Bitcoin maxis, and they have a very specific set of beliefs around how Bitcoin should be used. And even though I don't agree with their ideas in totality, I do think they have a lot of valid points about some of the negative incentives that can emerge within a crypto economy. And I really view, like, kind of my goal of what I would like to see Stacks as is that ecosystem that isn't just rife with scams, isn't just rife with like cash grabs, people trying to kind of defraud each other and just make a quick buck. And so, the kind of developers I would hope we're getting are the ones that, to Trevor's point, are the ones that really just want to kind of continue that original Bitcoin spirit, make Bitcoin better, kind of be that nitro fuel for the ecosystem, but not just, hey, let's just do whatever just because we can. And hey, we have a whole bunch of developer activity, but a lot of it is causing people a bunch of headaches and grief because half of them are scams. Yeah, I'm hoping that as we continue to grow, we're attracting those kinds of folks. As far as how we do that, I honestly don't know, but that's at least kind of my hope for what we're able to do.
Yeah, definitely. And to see some exciting use cases with SBTC is going to be, I think, a really, 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 really big proponent. So yeah, I can definitely understand a lot of the focus right now being on solutions like SBTC and also DLC Link. And I know both of the teams are definitely surrounded in
Any
the
other person who
ecosystem.
want to
I
give a
think
comment
okay.
or
I don't think Teke can hear me. I think he's rugging. If anyone else can tell him on the speaker stage that he's rugging, but yeah, as I said, like these use cases, I think these use cases as they come forward, as everybody's been saying, as they begin to come forward, and people start to realize that like you can really utilize Bitcoin in the way that they've kind of always wanted to, or always maybe thought about it, because a lot of people coming into the space in, let's say, the last bull run, I don't think that they're really thinking, okay, they kind of get that teaching from other ecosystems of like, Bitcoin is just over here doing its own thing as money and it's slow and all of the kind of regular misconceptions about Bitcoin. So I think if Stacks is able to change that narrative, that's where we'll see a lot of influx from the other side of from other ecosystems, shall I say. But again, as Trevor said, I pretty much well agree is that the amount of building that is going on in Stacks, and this is what I've always found like very compelling about Stacks as a community, is there's so much building going on and everyone's talking to each other and everyone's kind of getting on with it, helping each other to figure out what the next step is. So what I was going to say before, I know when TK jumped in before, but what I was going to say before is things like ourselves at Stacks London and the other Stacks chapters and things like the advocates, Stacks advocates, these are, I think, places where there are outlets for this information that we can kind of bring people into the community that are coming from other communities, get them, used to what's going on and understanding the ideas and the ethos behind what's going on in Stacks, and then being able to empower them through things like the Startup Lab and, other programs in the foundation and amongst different communities as well that are being run to help people, understand what's going on and be able to build here. So yeah, it's just all around great energy, I think, coming from Stacks. And I think once other ecosystems, other people from ecosystems start to realize this amount of community energy is like it's just waiting to burst. So yeah, I think it is a combination of all of the things, but definitely throwing like millions of dollars behind it is all it's going to do is bring in an influx of people who will be asking for those things, as you said before, like those quick builds of things and people trying to get like those quick builds. And I think everybody that I've met or that is coming through even Stacks London into the Stacks ecosystem, they begin to see that it really works in a more community like fashion, and everybody is using this consensus that blockchain and Bit has brought to the world. So yeah, definitely feel that those things, I agree across the board. All right. I'll
I want
take
to add.
a few more. Sorry, Prism. Just quickly, I'll
Yeah,
take
no,
a
all
few
good,
more
all good.
because we were gonna finish originally at 10:30, but I'll give another 10 minutes for everybody. So anybody that wants to come up, just put your hand up if you can't get up, and then we know that try and request to speak, and then we know that you're waiting. And anybody else that is already on the stage, yeah, definitely glad to hear your thoughts on everything to wrap up.
Yeah, so this isn't an answer, Trevor. But I think we have a lot of really smart people building really cool stuff in this ecosystem, and I don't know if we highlight them enough. And so we anytime, well, I don't want to use that word, but most of the spaces that we hold on Stacks that are big announcements or whatever are very structured. They're we generally hear from the same group of people, and it's very structured. We're talking about this specific thing. It would be really nice to see Stacks support builders that maybe aren't necessarily under that that Stacks umbrella, and sponsor people outside of those who are in that group of folks. There are some people on the NFT side. I mean, we've got Jim and Dash here building something really, really cool. It would be awesome to have a stack space talking about This Is Number One, or about the artist and Procrastinate Pixel and everything that they're building and how they're supporting the whole ecosystem. I think highlighting those things on a bigger stage. You hold something like that with Stacks. Manib is there. You get a lot of viewers. People see the type of builders that are here. I think that's really important. I would love to see more exposure from Stacks in support of the community, and instead of supporting those that they that they are invested in. And the second part, I think as a community, just as users of Stacks, I think we can level up a little bit. I think we can do a better job of sharing information, getting smarter about what we're, not just Stacks, but everything out there. And so I think these conversations are a way to do that. I would love to see people smarter than myself in these conversations who can teach us a little bit more. But that doesn't necessarily answer your question, but I think those types of things get the right type of exposure out there.
I'd just like to add to that before I've got to run, but I just totally agree. I think there's been, as the chain has evolved, it gets bigger, it gets harder everywhere at once, but certainly there are key moments. I mean, one example that springs to mind was when the Stacks Parrots Gallery launched. It's just a really incredible thing that just exists on Stacks, and there just wasn't that many people turning up in the launch. And I think there has become a bit of a divide, partly from people feeling, partly from sort of what's happened with funding, and partly from people feeling like they're sort of left out. But for whatever reason, it'd be nice for everyone to come back together again and kind of get to that point where it's like just turning up at something doesn't have to, don't have to be invested in it, but to turn up because it's just a good thing for the network. And I agree, like collaboration and sharing is definitely really important. We've been doing it recently, with Procrastinate Pixels, and we've got lots of other just amazing collaborations from within the space, and it both supports the people that are builders, but I think between us we've got a better chance of reaching outside and getting people from because that's what we need is new users, and that's kind of what we see our role in the NFT space being anyway, is trying to help on board.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I'm just giving a bit of time for anybody else. If anybody else wants to jump up and give a few words towards what the subjects have been about tonight, just to kind of recap a little bit. We started off talking about ordinals and what ordinals were, inscriptions, talking about touching a bit onto the block size wars and how this kind of almost feels like it's the same thing happening all over again. We talked about the significance to Stacks. We've talked about how Stacks as an ecosystem can work with ordinals and the pluses, the pros, the cons of both sides of things. And we've talked about how Stacks is generally providing more productivity towards Bitcoin. And that is obviously the main reason why Stacks is here. So knowing that you can do so much with Bitcoin and opening up, unleashing, as we like to say, those opportunities to be able to build protocols, businesses, and infrastructure, which all has Bitcoin still at the center of things, and how far Stacks has actually come in being that ecosystem and kept true to that ethos from the beginning right up until now, and continues to go on to be. So anybody else want to jump up and say anything about any of those subjects, or even if you want to shout out you're doing yourself with inside the Stacks ecosystem, be free to come up. Last 5 minutes, sorry. Okay, cool. Let's wrap it up there then, guys. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining. Thanks to Trevor, Prism, Jim, Hero, Across Fire, all of your different opinions tonight. We've had some other speakers, I know, jumped in and jumped out. quite a good space this evening. The recording will be up there for everybody to listen to, just to hear about the opinions, or if you heard something new, then you're able to find it right there. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks, more Bitcoin and Stacks crossover talk. As well, if you're promoting anything, again, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to put you into the spaces to feature what you're doing in the actual ecosystem. And then just kind of agreeing with what Prism was saying there towards the end is that, yeah, definitely there can be ways that we can work together with the foundation and the larger entities within the foundation's ecosystem to promote the message of the smaller builders and what is going on inside the community. There is just so much stuff being built and so much stuff going on. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us on another Saturday, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care.